When you start to see the truth to truly, unflinchingly see it, people around you inevitably grow deeply uncomfortable. It's not because you've become dangerous in the way they might fear. It's because your newfound clarity exposes what they have desperately been trying to hide. Most people live inside powerful, constructed illusions. They build their identity, their emotional comfort, and their sense of safety on convenient lies that help them perpetually avoid responsibility. And when someone like you begins to wake up, when you start to look past their masks, they feel an anxiety they cannot explain, fear, not because you've become a bad person, but because you've simply stopped pretending. When you begin to recognize manipulation, deceit, and hypocrisy for what they are, you become utterly unpredictable to those who depend on your blindness. They can no longer control you. You cease feeding their ego, their false narrative, or their intrinsic need to feel superior. You start walking a path that is entirely independent of their approval, and that terrifies them. People who live in chronic denial cannot tolerate the presence of someone who lives in fundamental truth. The truth acts like a mirror. It reflects their inner cowardice, their envy, their dishonesty, their profound lack of integrity. And when they see that reflection, they hate the person holding the glass. There is something about pure truth that burns through the illusions people use to psychologically survive. It is like light abruptly entering a dark room. The people sitting in that darkness will instantly curse the light for being too bright, too harsh, too painful. They will claim you've changed, that you've become cold, arrogant, or difficult. What they truly mean is you've stopped letting them lie to you, and that is something they cannot forgive. Because your powerful awareness removes the comfort they once felt in controlling you. When you are awake, you stop falling for their manipulation. You stop reacting to their games. You stop explaining yourself to those who are wholly committed to misunderstanding you. And when they can no longer provoke a response, they feel powerless. Their established tactics stop working immediately. That's when the true fear sets in. They start whispering and gossiping, trying to turn others against you. Because they are deeply afraid of your calmness, your insight, and your absolute refusal to participate in their drama. Your silence becomes louder than their words. Your sustained peace becomes an existential threat to their chaos. People who rely on deception require the world to remain emotionally asleep. They need everyone to operate under the same illusion, so they can continue playing their controlling role. But when someone sees through it, the entire illusion begins to crack. And you have become that crack. You are a living sign that the truth cannot be perpetually buried. That's why they are afraid. Because the truth doesn't just expose others. It calls everyone to change, to take responsibility, and to face what they have been avoiding. That is an act most simply do not have the courage to perform. The more grounded you become in this new reality, the less you need to defend yourself. You realize you don't owe explanations to people who live in deceit. You don't need to justify your peace to people addicted to chaos. The moment you detach from that cycle, you instantly reclaim your power, and they can feel it. Your energy no longer bends toward their validation. It stands firm, unshaken, reflecting everything they don't want to confront. That is the paradox of truth. It frees you, but it also isolates you. When you see clearly, you cannot return to pretending. And when you stop pretending, you can no longer blend in with those who still are. That distance is not rejection. It is definitive proof that you have outgrown their illusion. You are powerful not because you seek revenge, but because you operate from awareness. Real power is the ability to see clearly and remain completely calm, while everyone else is losing themselves in lies. It is the ability to remain centered while others crumble under the weight of their own illusions. Do not let their fear make you doubt your hard-won growth. Do not shrink yourself to make others comfortable. The truth demands that you stand tall, even if it means standing alone for a while. You don't have to prove your light to those committed to the dark. They may feel threatened, but that is not your problem, that is their conscience speaking. They see in you what they've been desperately running from in themselves. And that's something they can never unsee. This awakening is not rebellion. It is healing. It is clarity. It is a declaration. I will no longer be coerced. When you stop being reactive, people feel it. Your calm presence becomes profoundly unsettling to those who thrive on drama. They sense that you are no longer a part of their emotional web. Your clarity reminds them that they've chosen comfort over honesty, appearances over integrity. And deep down, they know it. The most dangerous thing to a manipulator is a person who cannot be manipulated. You've stopped being predictable, and that breaks their entire system. Trust that God guides you toward this clarity, which is validation in itself. You stop fearing rejection because you'd rather be alone with reality than surrounded by illusions. You didn't become dangerous by changing who you are. You became powerful by seeing what is real. And that alone is enough to make every pretender around you tremble. You have chosen honesty, which is the path to freedom. To solidify this new life, we need to ensure you don't slip back into old patterns. Would you like to focus on 3 brief, ironclad phrases you can use to immediately shut down and deflect guilt trips or manipulation attempts? Control is the very lifeblood of manipulators. They survive entirely on emotional reactions, your anger, your guilt, your confusion. Every outburst or defensive explanation fuels them. It reassures them that they still matter, that they still hold power over you. But when you stop responding, when you become calm and acutely observant, their tactics immediately cease working. You have cut off their supply of validation. You have removed the emotional energy they used to feed upon. When they realize they can no longer provoke you, fear sets in. They start to panic because without control, they lose their entire sense of importance. The truth is, most manipulators are deeply, profoundly insecure. Their need to dominate and deceive others stems directly from their inability to face their own internal weaknesses. Controlling you gives them the illusion of strength. It allows them to feel safe because if they can predict your behavior, they can protect their own fragile ego from being exposed. Once you start seeing through the manipulation, you shatter that illusion. You demonstrate, without saying a single word, that they are not as powerful as they thought. You take away the one thing they depended on, your emotional compliance. At first, they will test you mercilessly. They'll try to provoke you with old triggers, accusations, and sudden emotional outbursts, anything to pull you back into the old, familiar dance. But when you don't react, when you stay perfectly centered and calm, it completely unsettles them. They'll sense their influence slipping away. They'll start accusing you of being cold or heartless, claiming you no longer care. But in reality, you've just stopped giving them the attention they used to manipulate you. You have learned that silence is fundamentally stronger than any argument. Your awareness has broken their rhythm. You are no longer trapped in their emotional loop. You've stepped outside this cycle, and now you can see it clearly. You can predict their moves, but they can no longer predict yours. That shift in dynamic completely flips the power balance. You now observe from a place of unshakable clarity. You see how they twist stories to make you doubt yourself, how they disguise blatant insults as feigned concern, how they seamlessly shift blame to protect their image. You see it all, and instead of reacting, you simply stay grounded. That is what truly scares them, your calmness, your self-control, and your refusal to participate in their manipulative game. Manipulative people often mistake genuine kindness for weakness, believing empathy is something they can easily exploit. But when empathy is combined with sharp awareness, it becomes an impenetrable shield. You can still understand them. You can still perceive their pain, but you no longer absorb it as your personal responsibility. You realize that compassion does not equate to the tolerance of abuse. You stop trying to fix people who repeatedly break you. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. And once you reach that level of self-control, you become untouchable in their eyes. Your strength reveals their profound fragility, and they cannot handle it. Conversations that once left you completely drained now leave you entirely unaffected. You stop feeling the need to defend your truth because you know who you are. They might raise their voice, throw accusations, or twist your words, but you don't chase after their approval anymore. You simply let their words hang in the air, meaningless, powerless. That profound lack of reaction is what breaks them. They realize they can no longer control how you feel, and for someone whose life hinges on control, that realization is unbearable. Your responsibility is not to shrink to keep their ego intact. Your responsibility is to protect your peace, your clarity, your integrity, and sometimes that means walking away, not with anger, but with profound understanding. You see that their destructive behavior comes from deep-seated fear, not true power. And you refuse to live in that fear any longer. When you stop reacting, you stop being their puppet. They might accuse you of being distant or unfeeling, but in truth, you've simply become disciplined. You have mastered yourself. They can't shake you, can't predict you, and can't pull you down. Over time, that inner stability starts to quietly radiate from you. Your strength becomes quiet, invisible, yet absolutely undeniable. The beautiful part of awareness is that it doesn't just remove other people's control. It gives you back your own peace. You no longer live on edge, waiting for the next outburst or the next lie. You live from a place of inner certainty. You learn to observe rather than absorb. You respond rather than react. That emotional maturity is something manipulators cannot compete with. You win not by fighting, but by refusing to play. This is what it means to evolve to outgrow the cycles that kept you trapped. The moment you realize you don't have to attend every argument, you're invited to, life changes completely. Peace is one of the most unsettling things in the world for people who thrive on chaos. When you stay calm and choose silence over arguments, your peace becomes louder than their noise. It unnerves them because they are used to seeing you lose control or try to fix what they break. But when you stop, they are forced to see their own instability reflected back at them. And that is what truly scares them. Your calmness reveals what they try to hide. When they yell and you stay quiet, their aggression looks foolish. Your peace acts like a spotlight, exposing their inner chaos without you having to lift a finger. You've learned that you can't control how others behave, but you can absolutely control whether or not you let them disturb your inner world. Once you build that inner world strong enough, no external chaos can reach it. You walk through storms without losing balance. You hear lies without losing clarity. You face hostility without losing grace. That is real power. When they look at you with confusion, anger, or fear because you won't fight back, know this: it's not you who's changed for the worse. It's you who has grown. Your peace is your ultimate evolution, and their discomfort is the proof of it. Keep that peace close. Let it speak for you, because in the end, the calmest person in the room always holds the most power. That the ultimate victory is in his silence. Now, let's equip you with the verbal defense you need. Would you like to focus on 3 brief, ironclad phrases you can use to immediately shut down and deflect guilt trips or manipulation attempts? Clarity at the beginning is often a lonely thing. You start seeing people differently. Those who used to impress you now seem shallow. The integrity of those you once trusted begins to show cracks. Conversations that once felt normal now feel meaningless. It is like waking up in a room filled with people still deeply asleep. You want to shake them, to tell them what you see, but they are absolutely not ready to hear it. And when you try, they become instantly angry They'll claim you've changed, that you've become judgmental, distant, or cold. But what has truly happened is that you have stopped pretending. You have stopped agreeing to convenient lies just to maintain a false peace. Truth has a way of forcing you to stand alone for a necessary period. Because when you stop lying to yourself, you can no longer tolerate lies from others. You start implementing boundaries. You start saying no to things you used to blindly accept. And those no's make people profoundly uncomfortable. They will label you as difficult or unkind because your honesty threatens the comfort of their illusions. You'll notice how quickly some people withdraw the moment you stop giving them the version of you that existed solely to make them feel better about themselves. The silence that follows your clear stance can feel heavy. It feels like significant loss, but it is actually a cleansing. You are losing false, illusory connections to make crucial room for real ones. That is the paradox of spiritual awakening. You become stronger and lonelier simultaneously. You walk away from draining conversations. You distance yourself from constant victimhood and stop participating in gossip or fake niceness. You realize you would much rather sit alone in truth than be surrounded by deceit, but that choice has a steep cost. There will be moments when your mind questions if you did the right thing, if you should have just stayed quiet and played along. But that doubt quickly fades when you recall the emotional pain of living in denial. The peace you possess now may be quiet, but it is absolutely real. You begin to understand that isolation is not punishment, it is preparation. The truth separates you from what no longer serves your elevation. It creates space for clarity, for authenticity, and for deeper self-respect. You find strength in solitude. You learn that being alone is fundamentally different from being lonely. When you sit with yourself in truth, you stop needing others to fill the silence. That silence becomes sacred. It is where your truest self starts to speak. You no longer have to fight with people who are afraid of your truth. The moment you understand that awareness itself is power, you stop wasting energy on those who thrive on confusion. Awareness changes everything. It is quiet, but its effect is absolute. When you see through the facade someone has built, they feel it, even if you don't say a word. This recognition that you can no longer be deceived is why awareness is more powerful than revenge. Revenge ties you back to the same painful energy. Awareness, however, frees you. It makes you understand that you don't have to destroy them. God and truth already handled that. People ultimately collapse under the weight of their own lies. Your only task is to stay aware and keep moving forward with purpose. When you are aware, you start seeing how truth works like gravity. It doesn't need your permission to act. It simply pulls everything back to its natural, undeniable order. The lies people build eventually crumble because they cannot withstand the pressure of reality. Awareness allows you to step out of that toxic cycle. You understand that nothing needs to be forced. There is deep, profound strength in staying calm while others try to provoke you. You learn that reacting gives them energy, while silence drains their power. When you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, you reclaim control of your peace. Awareness teaches you compassion, not the kind that excuses betrayal, but the kind that understands fundamental human weakness. You begin to see that people act out of deep fear, insecurity, and emptiness, but that understanding does not mean you let them back in. It means you no longer carry bitterness. You forgive for your own peace, not for their redemption. You choose to walk away without looking back. That is power. It takes incredible strength to stay gentle in a world full of cruelty. It takes discipline to remain calm when people try to drag you into their manufactured storm. When you are aware, you stop needing validation. You learn to be content in solitude because peace becomes your new environment, not your peace. Grounded in truth is what others find intimidating. They can't figure out how you remain so unbothered. Awareness turns you into a mirror. People start seeing their own lies, mistakes, and guilt every time they look at you. That's why they act defensive, spreading rumors to distract themselves from their conscience. But you don't need to respond. You let them talk because truth always finds its way out. You stop chasing explanations and start living with acceptance. That shift changes everything. You find peace, not because the world suddenly became kinder, but because you stopped expecting it to be. You've outgrown the cycles you once thought were permanent. You have evolved into someone who doesn't just see truth, but actively lives by it. And that kind of authenticity, that quiet confidence is what truly threatens those who are still living in denial. They can manipulate someone who knows themselves. You stay grounded. You let the truth work in silence while you keep building your life. No revenge, no drama. Just awareness and peace. You finally realize you didn't need to win against them. You only needed to wake up.